Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello again, Rhonda.
Hi, David. That's so funny. You sound like a purring cat.
Well, maybe I learned that from our sweetie pie, our new kitty who purrs like crazy.
Welcome, listeners, to episode 262. Today's the conclusion of the personal work that David and Jill did with Jillian, the family medicine physician who worked with them in May. And I think we're going to jump right into the personal work so we can get to the conclusion of today when Jillian and Jill will join us to talk about how the personal work has impacted her life from then on.
Right. Last week you heard the TE of team, the testing and the empathy, which is very crucial. This week you're going to hear about the A and the M, the assessment of resistance. We used to call that paradoxical agenda setting. And the M is methods, and that's where the miracles actually happen. So hope you enjoy it, and we'll meet you again at the end and get a little follow-up from Jillian and from our brilliant and fantastic Dr. Jill Levitt. But let me ask you a question here. Jill did the invitation last time, and everyone practiced that. Would this be a time for us to roll up our sleeves and get to work on some aspect of what you're saying? And the reason I want to ask this is because your life is all dominated by work. And if you need more time to talk and get support, that's good too, because I don't want to change you on that important dimension.
No, I'm ready. I'm ready to help make this better.
Okay, great. Now let's say that this is just a tremendous session, and at the end you say, "Wow, that was just fantastic." What would happen? We can't promise a miracle, but if a miracle happened, what miracle would you be asking for?
The private island? No.
Well, let's not forget that. We might need to prescribe that for your homework.
Think the ability to enjoy my job and to be able to feel like I set boundaries, and honestly to potentially give away some of the certificates, in the sense of trying to upkeep them all. Like to just be happy with one of the things that I do and just go with that and enjoy it instead of going to work every day out of fear.
Okay, there's 4 goals. They're all great. I love them. Not fearing work. So here's what they are. Ability to enjoy my job. The ability to give away my certificates, to set limits, the courage to set limits with people, to feel happy with what I do and not fearing going to work every day. So let's say that we had a magic button and all of those things would magically come true with no effort at all, and you'd just suddenly feel a flood of joy instead of anxiety, and the depression would be gone, and the anxiety would disappear, and feeling bad would disappear, and feeling inadequate and incompetent would disappear, and self-conscious would disappear, and hopeless would disappear, and frustrated would disappear, and annoyed would disappear, and you'd be in a state of euphoria and just can't wait to go to work each day. Would you press the button?
It sounds really good.
Okay. Well, we don't have a magic button, but we do have some pretty tremendous techniques, and we possibly could make that happen, and I predict we probably are going to make that happen, but I'm not convinced that that would be a good idea.
Knowing enough CBT, I would agree. It's probably not a good idea.
Right. And let's see if we can spell out why that is. What before we go about getting rid of all of this angst and misery and suffering, let's again make a list. So let's see what your negative thoughts.
By the way, the fact that Jillian said, I know enough about CBT to know not so much, even if Jillian had not said that, right? Basically, whether doesn't really matter if Jillian says, yes, let's press the button. I want to feel amazing. I want to love my job. I no longer want to feel this pressure. That's great. And if Jillian said, well, I don't know, like I feel kind of torn. Either way, we move to the positive reframing, because either way we can say, hey, either, yeah, we agree, there might be some benefits, or if she's saying, press the button, get me there, we can say, hold on a second, before we get you there, which we'd love to do, let's think for a moment, what are all the benefits of some of your thoughts and feelings, and what do they show about you that's really positive and awesome? How are they an expression of your values? So either way, we land here.
Right. And I'm going to go out of order a little bit. I'm going to start with your thought, nothing I do makes a difference. And I want to ask you two questions about that, and every thought and every feeling. What does that thought show about you that's positive and awesome, and you and your core values? And what are some advantages of having that thought?
So I think it just shows just how much I care about another person.
Okay, and put that in the right-hand column. And is that real?
That's absolutely real.
Is that important?
Yeah.
Is that powerful?
Yes.
Okay, great. I love it. What are some other positives?
Well, I've definitely achieved a lot because of it.
Put that down. Is that true?
Yeah.
Is that important?
Yeah.
Is that powerful?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of like it drives me to work hard, right? Is that it drives me to work hard and achieve more.
Mm-hmm. What are more beautiful things it shows about you, Jillian?
I think my love of learning, in all honesty.
Put that down. Yes, that's a beautiful thing. The love of learning. What else?
I think that I am kind of always adapting. Like if this doesn't work, I'll try it out. Like being persistent.
Yeah. Is that important in medicine and psychotherapy?
Yeah, I think continuing to, the faster you fail, right?
Yeah, right.
And Andy said something else, adaptable, which makes a lot of sense. It kind of sounds like you're really open-minded and you're just going to keep trying to learn new things that might solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Persistent and adaptable. Is that true?
That is very true.
And what are some other beautiful things about nothing I do makes a difference? What are some really awesome things about somebody who has that belief?
I always keep doing things to try to make a difference. I don't know.
Yeah, put that down. Is that important?
I think so.
Yeah, try to make a difference. Maybe the problem isn't so much with people like yourself who think they're not making enough of a difference, but people who aren't telling themselves that.
I'm thinking through that.
Well, a lot of people aren't trying to make a difference for the world, right?
True, yeah.
So what a beautiful thing that you're worried that you're not making enough of a difference. You're sad.
Can I ask one other thing about the nothing I do makes a difference? Does that sound like someone who's really arrogant and full of herself, or what? What does it show about you?
I think it definitely shows my humility.
Yeah.
There's
Yes.
not a lot of arrogance that comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, is that it's kind of the opposite, right? You're working so hard and beating yourself up all the while. It shows tremendous humility.
Yeah. So, yeah, it really, I mean, it just, it's a manifestation of what's beautiful about you. You're very sad, Jillian. 80%. What if we press the magic button? Your sadness will disappear, and you'll be euphoric, be joyous, deliriously happy.
That would probably not be good in bad situations.
Yeah. Yeah. What? So, how would you put that in terms of?
Well, I mean, I think like being sad is a normal emotion and gives me the full spectrum of being human.
Okay, that makes me human. That's a good one. What are some other great things about your sadness?
For me, it makes me try to connect with other people.
Is that good? Is that important?
Yeah.
Okay, makes me want to connect with others.
When you're wanting to help others and not able to help them, and you feel really sad about it, what does that show about you as a person?
I think just how compassionate and being able to kind of put myself in their shoes.
Yeah. Is that desirable?
Yeah.
Is that important?
Yeah.
Is that powerful?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another thing that Jill taught me about sadness and depression. Do you remember what it was, Jill?
You mean about like loss? Is that what you're talking about? Or acceptance?
Well, that's certainly part of it. It shows your passion for what you feel you don't have, the passion you have for seeing people being healed.
That seems so true for you, Jillian. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So you have this intense passion, and then when it doesn't pan out, you feel intensely sad. It's a reflection. I love that, David. It's a reflection of the passion that you have for helping others.
Yeah. And you feel inferior and inadequate and incompetent. What would be 11 wonderful things about feeling inferior and incompetent? We'll settle for 6.
I think it goes back to humility. Like I'm never too big for my britches type thing.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that. What else?
I think it allows, there's always kind of that doctor hierarchy thing of like, I should stand above and, be over my minions.
Yeah.
And I've never felt that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I love that.
Relatable or approachable.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You consider all people equal.
So it shows that you're approachable.
Mm-hmm.
Does it show, another positive thing, does it show that you're honest since you have tons of flaws and inadequacies?
Yeah, I think it does.
Is that important, to be honest?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I was thinking I'm sorry, David.
Sure.
Okay. I was thinking when you feel upset with others, when you have this thought, my patient should do whatever I say to get better. What does it show about you that's really beautiful and awesome?
What does that phrase show about?
Yeah, because I see something really clearly.
Yeah, what are 6 awesome things about being
when you're annoyed with others for not taking your advice and bettering their lives? What does that show about you?
Probably my care and concern for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think so. I mean, like if I dole out advice and people don't follow it and I don't really care, it's because I don't really care about them. But if I dole out advice and I'm super invested in the outcome that this person gets better, it's because you care deeply about your patients and about them bettering their own lives.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even because you believe in them, like you believe that they could get better.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jill.
What do you think, Jillian?
Yeah. I mean, I've had people say, like, you're the only person who believes.
Yeah. Wow. What a neat thing to hear. You're 90% frustrated, frustrated and defeated. What's just fabulous about feeling frustrated and defeated?
I think that I never really throw my hands up.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I get frustrated and defeated, but I'm like the scrappy one who's like, well, let's keep going.
Yeah. It shows you haven't given up on your goal. Frustration. If you gave up on your goal, you wouldn't feel frustrated anymore.
Right.
So that's a neat thing.
I wonder if we should. What do you think, David? Are
push on?
Yeah, I think so. For the sake of time, but
okay, you take it from this point, because again, we kind of see the central theme here. We could go over many more thoughts and many more emotions, but we've got a tremendous list here. So take it away, Jill and Jillian.
Well, Jillian, maybe we could take a minute to just review, and I'm not sure I'll catch every single one that we said, but we talked about how these negative thoughts and feelings show just how much you care about your patients, about doing a good job for them, that they drive you to work hard and to achieve more, that you have a love of learning, that you're persistent and adaptable, that you're humble and human, that it's important for you to connect with others and to be compassionate and caring and loving, and that you're approachable and honest, and that you care so much, again, about your patients and really believe in their ability to get well, that you won't give up on them. And so I'm just wondering, kind of given all these benefits and positive values of your negative thoughts and feelings and being so hard on yourself and unsatisfied with yourself, why would you give that up when it comes with this long list of beautiful benefits?
Yeah, I'll take the dial.
Okay.
Yeah. Why though? Tell us why should we change this? I want to know what's in it. What's in it for you? Why would you want to give this up?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to press the button. I mean, as you were reading that list, I think it was more powerful than me even writing it, because I was like, there's no way that all those things are applicable to me, but yet we just made the list and you made me basically vow every single one of them was true and right and good. And so I was like, well, what she's saying then has to be true about me. And so, no, I can't press the magic button then.
Yeah. So you want the dials. Let's see if we can dial it down a little. You're sad and blue and down, unhappy 80%. How happy? How down would you like to feel at the end of the demonstration?
I think 15. 15.
Put a 15 in. Well, this daily mood log is the old two column. We don't have the goal column in this one, but.
Oh, I have it in the handout packet.
Oh, in the handout one, yes. Yeah, okay, so do it in the handout one. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so everyone, you're on the daily mood log, Jillian's daily mood log on page 6, and we're writing now, using the magic dial to write down the percentages in the goal column. Okay, so 15, that would be enough depression for you, enough sadness?
I think so.
Okay. How anxious and nervous, that was 90. How anxious and nervous would you like to feel?
I think 20.
20, okay. How bad and guilty do you want to feel?
I really don't.
0? Big 0 on that one? Okay.
The next one is inferior, right?
Yeah.
Inferior.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of a Buddhist quote, but I'll give up on
that.
Inferior, inadequate, and incompetent. That was 95. How incompetent would you like to feel?
5.
5. Okay, that's enough incompetence for you?
Well, 0 would be nice too.
Well,
but I like some humility with that.
Right,
there we go.
You don't
there we go.
You don't want to give up all your incompetence because you need to hang on to your humility, right?
Self-conscious was 50. How self-conscious do you want to feel?
Maybe only like 10.
10, great. How hopeless do you want to feel? That's 100. That's one of the 2 big ones. How hopeless, discouraged, pessimistic, and despairing do you want to feel?
That's one I want to be 0 too.
Okay, 0. How frustrated and defeated do you want to feel?
Only 5.
5. How resentful, annoyed, and irritated do you want to feel, I guess, with your patients?
I guess 10.
10, great, okay. Now, again, from a simple teaching point of view, we've done the T equals testing, the E equals empathy. We do things in this exact order, and then the A equals assessment of resistance. And you can, take a workshop like this from 2 perspectives. One is to take this or that piece that you could use in your practice, like maybe you would only use the testing. Well, if you just started using my brief mood survey before and after every session with every patient, then get your empathy ratings and helpfulness ratings, that itself would have a transforming effect on your practice. But to get the greatest result, we like to follow this TEA step-by-step approach, because that's the most powerful approach to getting meaningful improvements quickly in the people you're working with. So what thought, I think I have 12 of them, the 8 you gave, and then I've written down 4 more. And which one do you want to work on first? Because they're all really excellent.
I think maybe one of the new ones that I'm not having a big enough impact.
Okay, yeah. Yes, okay, number 9, and that's 100%. Now, if you look at the 10 distortions, which on mine are just directly under that thought because I just wrote it by hand on the daily mood log. So what are the distortions in I'm not having a big enough impact?
So I think all or nothing thinking.
Okay, now just explain that to us, because that's a great call, and teach us why that's all or nothing thinking.
Because I definitely have influenced the health of people. And so...
Would you stop for just a second? How much do you believe what you just said, between 0 and 100?
That I've influenced the health of people? 100%.
Would you write that in the right-hand column? In the positive thought column? I have influenced the help of
health.
Oh, at my age, these words all begin to sound the same. The health of people, and that's 100%. And why I did that, we're using a technique called explain the distortions. You just ask the patient to teach you about each distortion they find. And you say, now, why is that a distortion? They'll often come up with a positive thought, and you can just ask them to write it down. It's an easy way to generate really strong positive thoughts. So that's beautiful. It's all or nothing thinking. What are some other distortions?
It's a hidden should statement.
I love that. Now, explain to us why it's a hidden should statement.
Because, it's basically me telling myself that I should be having a bigger impact.
Mm-hmm. And why would that be considered a thinking error?
Because there's really no mandate by the universe telling me that I'm supposed to have an impact.
Or an impact of any particular size.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. How much do you believe that?
I don't, that's probably only like 75%.
Mm-hmm. What part of that is not true, if it's not totally true? How could we revise that and make it actually totally true?
Because I do feel like I still have to, I still want to contribute. I still want
Well, let's stop right there. How much do you believe that I want to contribute?
That's 100%.
I want to put that in the right-hand column. I want to contribute. And that's how you antidote a should statement. Instead of the should, you say, I would like to contribute instead of I should be contributing more. I want to contribute more. How about that?
Yeah, that's 100% true.
100%. So that's a good one. So you can see each distortion will lead to a different kind of positive thought. It's a different window for looking at a thought, a distorted thought, and gives you another way to attack that thought. What are some more
just about the should statement for me, because I don't know if you felt the impact of that change. In other words, there's a difference between saying I should contribute more, right? Which sounds kind of scolding and reprimanding and bossy and bullyish, right? Versus I'd like to continue to contribute, or even I'd like to contribute more, which sounds kind of aspirational and maybe even compassionate. Do you see the difference in sort of, does it feel different to you?
I actually felt it between when I've made the first statement that I only believed like 75% was that I felt like I needed to. And I only believed that 75% because that's still a should.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to is now like not a mandate. That's more of a desire or a wish.
Isn't that cool?
Yes.
Kind of freeing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the funny thing for me, once I stopped trying to be so perfect and trying to cure everybody, you know what happened?
I don't.
My effectiveness went way up.
Yeah.
Because when people before that would say, Dr. Burns, you're not helping me, I couldn't stand it because it was a threat to my self-esteem, and I would argue with them to prove that they were wrong. And then one day I finally said, you're right. I haven't been helping you, and it's killing me too. It's painful. I feel so sad. You're probably so pissed off at me and so discouraged. Tell me about it. I want to hear what you have to say. And then suddenly the heavens opened up. The moment I stopped trying so hard, the magic suddenly came into the picture. What are some more distortions in that thought? We got
I think a mental filter.
Yeah. And also discounting the positive.
Mm-hmm.
They often go hand in hand. Explain that to us.
So I think that I am completely, if I think back to the number of emergent C-sections that I've done, or the number of babies that I have resuscitated that are alive today because of what I've done, I think that would be really hard to say that I'm not having a big enough impact.
I love that. Put that in the right-hand column. I have resuscitated many, many babies.
And I think that one of the other things is that in my job, I also help people actually. So not only that aspect, but I also have helped people have a good death.
Yeah, I love that. I've done that too. Yeah. That is so important, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I've helped people. Yeah, that's so beautiful what you're saying. Have a good death. And so let's see how much you believe these statements. I have resuscitated many babies. How much do you believe that?
100%.
Mm-hmm. I have made an impact. How much do you believe that?
100%.
Mm-hmm. I've helped many people have a good death. How much do you believe that?
100%.
Mm-hmm. Now, how much do you believe I'm not having a big enough impact?
That I think has gone down to 0.
0. Okay, great. Now, I love what you're doing. Now, the teaching point, what happened here is called the cognitive click, we used to call it in the early days of cognitive therapy, where the first thought switches and then all the brain circuits start firing differently. And so we can go, if you want to go to externalization of voices, a really aggressive technique. And what's your name?
Jillian.
What's Jill's name?
Jillian.
And what's David's name?
Jillian.
Okay, you want to start out, Jill? And again, you want to, I'll explain what we're about to do, and then you do it.
Awesome.
Jill is going to be the negative part. You saw this again. You're going to see it again. It's a great technique. It's one of the best techniques of all. Jill will be the negative Jillian, and we'll speak in the second person you, and it's going to say, you're not having a big enough impact. Then Jill will play the self-loving positive Jillian, and will try to defeat the negative Jill. This is called externalization of voices, and then Jillian can use 3 strategies and can use any one of the 3 or mix them together. One is self-defense. That's where you tell the negative thought, you're full of BS, it's not true. The second strategy is self-acceptance, where you accept that there's some truth in the negative thought. You accept it with a sense of peace or even a sense of humor. And the third strategy is called the CAT, C-A-T, counterattack technique, and that's where you tell the negative thought to bug off. And that's based on the work of Epictetus 2,000 years ago, the Greek philosopher, who pointed out that our misery doesn't come from our shortcomings or from any of the events in our lives, but from this internal dialogue. And you're simply saying to your negative self, cut the shit, so to speak. Except you don't use that bad word, though. So are you? Go ahead, take it away, Jill.
So Jillian, just so everyone knows, and so I know that you know, remind me, who are you? What's your name?
I'm positive Jillian.
Perfect. And who am I?
Negative Jillian.
Exactly. And I'm going to use your thoughts from the daily mood log, okay?
Okay.
So, Jillian, you're really not having a big enough impact.
You're probably right. Like on a global scale, like there's 7.5 billion people on this planet. And I mean, it's not a big impact, but I can tell you that there are a lot of moms hugging babies and a lot of families that have, wished their loved ones a good death, and that I've been a part of. And so while it hasn't been a global impact of 7.5 billion, it sure as hell mattered to them.
And who won that? Jillian, you or me?
I did.
Was that big or small?
That was big.
Or big or huge?
I think huge.
Okay, awesome. Who am I?
You're negative, Jillian.
Yeah, and well, you beat that other negative Jillian, but I want to tell you something you will not be able to defeat. Are you ready?
Bring it on.
Nothing you do makes a difference. And that's 90% true, and you know it.
I think that's just a bunch of BS.
Who won?
Well, I did. I mean, just listening to that seems foolish at this point. And I think I'm just, that the voice can just shut up as far as I'm concerned.
But I just wanted to tell you, like, okay, you're kind of talking back to some of those thoughts, but the fact is, if you don't know how to do something, your patient is going to think you're an idiot.
They might, but I've been able to figure out most things. And if I have to call in a specialist or what have you, I usually can figure that out. I am very well trained. And if people don't like my medical decisions and they leave me, that's just their opinion. But I'm going to practice with integrity and do what I need to do to take the best care of people.
Who won?
I did.
Big or small?
Big.
Big or huge?
Huge.
Huge. And I'll show you another style on that one if you want.
Sure.
But I mean, you don't need another style because you already crushed it, but I'll just show you another style.
Okay. So I'm supposed to be negative, Jillian, and then attacking you. Okay. Yeah. If you don't know something, your patient will just think you're an idiot.
I've never had any patient who thought I was an idiot. And, I could easily survive. It'd probably be a psychotic, angry person. But I think most of my patients really love me and appreciate what I do for them. And if I don't know something and tell them, I don't think they're looking down on me at all. And if I have to bring in an expert consultant, I think they appreciate that as well. I think I'm really fortunate to have patients who deeply appreciate what I do, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that. The idea that I got to impress everybody is just a lot of horseshit. People want to be cared about, and they know that I care about them, and they trust my medical skills, which are pretty darn good.
So who won that, Jillian?
Oh, he did.
Yeah, was that big or small or big or huge?
That was huge.
Huge, yeah.
What did David do? What did you like about what he said that was a little different?
I think really kind of getting rid of the label aspect.
Yeah.
That it's not harmful. That and honestly, it's probably not even true.
Yeah, right.
And when I left my last job, that was in 2017, I still have people lamenting.
Oh, yeah.
Like on Facebook, people from Wisconsin will email me to within a couple weeks and be like, you were the best we ever had. How's your family doing? Type thing.
What a beautiful thing. And how nice that you can see and accept that more. Now, your turn, Jill. I'll shut up for a little bit here.
You're doing
exciting. I couldn't get off.
I'm loving everything you're doing, so please don't shut up. It's beautiful. Let's see. Let me ask you, Jillian, when you look at your thoughts on the daily mood log, can you pick another one that you want to work on?
I think the wimp one, that one still has a sting to it.
Totally. So let's try that one. I'm going to be your negative Jillian. Okay. And yeah, Jillian, you know who you left that last job because of those sleep issues. You're such a wimp for leaving your last practice.
That the whole situation just wasn't good. I mean, expecting one person to do all of that work and for it not to have negative effects, that was actually like human torture as far as I'm concerned. And so I don't think it was a wimp as much as a red flag of just how bad the culture of medicine can be.
Wow. So who won that? You or me?
I did.
Was that big or small?
I think just big. I wouldn't go huge.
Okay. All right.
Do a role reversal.
And let me just read what you wrote. You said essentially that whole situation wasn't good. They were expecting one person to do all the work. And in fact, the way they set things up was really like human torture. And I wasn't a wimp. I was paying attention to a red flag. But okay, so you want to do a role reversal and see if I can get to huge?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to be negative, Jillian, and I'll be positive, Jillian.
Yes. So, you are such a wimp for leaving your last practice.
Ouch, that sounds kind of painful and hurtful. I don't know why you need to call me names. I actually think I did something pretty courageous leaving my last practice. My high standards and high expectations of myself would have me, probably dead by now if I had stayed in my last practice. I think I did something pretty brave, courageous, and hard for me to do, which is called taking care of myself and setting limits and saying no to torture. so that I could live a happier life with, my husband and my kids, and have a more joyful practice where I could spend more time with my patients and more time sleeping.
Yeah, I think you won huge.
Yeah.
How did she win huge?
I think not only acknowledge the torture, but acknowledged the win of what I have done. Because essentially I moved states to an unknown town. I mean, it's my husband's hometown, set up a medical practice, and have been successful for 3 years, but successful in both being able to care for patients the way I want to. And also I have the family time where my last job, my son called the hospital mama's house. And yet I've tucked my kids in every night since I've moved down here.
I love that. Can we do a switch back again? So you have a chance. Can I be the negative and you be the positive? And,
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Jillian, remember, you're just such a wimp for leaving that last practice.
That is totally not true. For one, it was just an unsafe situation and went against probably every fiber of integrity I had, where it wasn't safe for me. It wasn't good for me. And you're right, I probably would have been dead if I had stayed there. And instead, I chose to believe in myself and opened up my own practice where I can spend time with my patients. I care for them deeply. And I also get to take care of myself and see my family and do the things that I love without giving my entire soul to medicine.
Who won that? You or me?
I did. Huge.
Yeah.
You joyed. But you know who I am.
Yep. You're a negative, Jillian.
Yeah. And all that BS you've been doing with Jill and with that David guy and trying to pretend that none of this is true. But I'll tell you something that is true.
What's that?
That you should love your job and be grateful for it.
Yeah, I don't think that is a prerequisite to life. But I would say that there is a good possibility that I can love my job and that I will love my job. And that I do have a lot of things to be grateful for. I think the job is challenging and will have hard times. But I think that when I take the pressure off, I probably will love my job.
Who won? I
did.
Big or small?
Big.
Big or huge?
I think bordering on huge.
Do a role. Yeah, right. Do a role reversal.
All right. Jillian, you should love your job and be grateful for it.
Yeah. Oh, what a beautiful, beautiful thing that you're saying. Thank you. Thank you. I was almost getting happy there for a minute. And thanks for trying to push me back into to misery again. But there's really a couple reasons why I should not love my job.
Why is that?
Well, one, I have to maybe set some limits with patients. And but there's someone else I have to set limits with, someone else I need to say no to.
Go on.
Is that person who keeps putting that bullshit in my ear. Listening to you is the reason I get upset. So, as the Buddha said 2,500 years ago, cut out the shit, sweetheart.
And another way of saying that would be, it's not my job that's making me unhappy. Actually, I love my job. I love caring for patients. I love solving problems. It's telling myself I'm not good enough that's causing me
the chatter.
Problems. It's that mental chatter.
The job isn't the problem.
My job kind of rocks and I kind of rock at it. But if I could stop getting in my head and telling myself I'm not good enough, I'd actually probably be loving my job.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, Jillian, I know Jill was just giving you a bunch of bullshit and stuff, but it is a fact that you should love your job and you should be grateful for it, and you're not. So you should also be ashamed.
Just stop. I'm not listening to you anymore. Because as what Jill said and what I think resonated with me is my job rocks and I'm actually pretty damn good at it.
Who won?
I did.
Big or small?
Huge.
Yeah, huge. How did you get to huge?
I think with the counterattack for sure.
Yeah, that's a nice tool, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of noticed it about 2 years ago on one of my Sunday hikes. I thought that needs a name, and then we could teach it. And I said, well, let's call that counterattack. And it's really quite different from the acceptance paradox or the self-defense, and it comes in pretty handy. Are there any of your negative thoughts that still have credibility? And if so, Jill will attack you.
I think one that maybe we haven't addressed as much is this feeling of like needing to be liked or cool or accepted.
Why don't we do a feared fantasy? But at any rate,
let's share with the audience, David, what made you think, because I love this idea and this is helpful to people, what made you think that we should use the feared fantasy? I know I'm sort of interviewing you here, but why did you think the feared fantasy would be a good method
because it involves here the idea that other people are going to judge me if I'm not, it's a perceived perfectionism. And when you do feared fantasy, you enter an Alice in Wonderland nightmare world where your worst fear comes true, so you can confront it. Because if you ask your patients, will you think I'm not cool if I don't know something? And they'll say, oh, no, that's not true, But in the feared fantasy world, when you think people are looking down on you, they really are. And they get right up in your face and they try to humiliate you. And this gives you a chance to confront your worst fear. And so you're afraid that patients would be, judging you or something if you don't know all the answers?
Mm-hmm. And is it patients or colleagues? If we were going to set up the feared fantasy, are we going to be your patients thinking, you don't know how to help me? Or are we going to be your colleagues saying, we don't really like you. You're not that cool because you don't help all your patients as much as we do?
I think it is I think those are both two things that I feel. Is that I have the fear that if I don't know an answer, don't know how to fix a problem, that the patients are going to think I'm an idiot. But then I also have always this fear that other doctors and colleagues are going to say, well, she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. She can't figure it out type thing. And then I just have this and then I just have this general sense of like, people are like that I'm not, like I'm not special in some way, or that they're always kind of looking at me saying, oh, she's a nobody, or, she doesn't know what the hell she's doing. And she's just a phony, things like that. So there's a lot of that chatter.
Okay, great.
And this is part of setting up the method too, is that you get from the patient, what is the patient most afraid of? Like, who is that feared audience, right? Who is the patient worried will judge them? And what do they worry? What is the patient worried those people will say, right? So it's that you're not special, that you're a phony, that you don't know enough, right?
Mm-hmm. Or that you don't know what you're talking about, or that, I think you're an idiot. And so you want to play Jillian or the colleagues and patients from hell?
I want to be the colleagues and patients from hell.
Okay, great. And so we'll be Jillian. Can I start out first? No, you start out first, Jill. You do beautiful on this. So see if you can humiliate Jillian there.
So for the audience, Jillian is going to be kind of her worst nightmare, right? Jillian, you want to be that sort of like critic from hell, colleague from hell, and I'm going to be Jillian. And I also want people to know the feared fantasy method. This is not social skills training. This is not like we're training Jillian. What would you say if a colleague criticized you? Because that would look pretty different. This is really kind of like an exposure method, right? We're saying, what is Jillian most afraid of? And let's actually go there and face it and see if it's really that awful after all. Okay. Okay. So Jillian, go for it. Tear me up.
All right. Well, you didn't really understand my medical problem, and you're just such an idiot.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. I didn't fully understand your medical problem. And it sounds like you're feeling, kind of angry about that. I was sorry, I got kind of stuck. Let me think for a minute. What would I say here? Yeah, can you tell me a little bit more about about your medical problem and about why you're feeling so angry with me. It sounds like I did kind of disappoint you or let you down, or you were mad that I didn't have all the solutions.
Well, I mean, I'm paying you, and so you should figure all this out.
Yeah, David, the reason I feel kind of stuck is because
it's easy to get stuck. Like, I think I can do it.
Why don't we? Hit David.
Go ahead.
So you don't know anything about my medical problem, and you're just such an idiot.
Oh, appreciate you giving me that honest feedback. I appreciate it because, I think the world of you. And I actually know quite a bit about your medical problem, but not enough to know the best treatment for it and make sure we've got the right diagnosis. And that's why I've suggested a specialist who's one of the top people in Canada really on this kind of problem. But it sounds like you were wishing that I would have, had that skill and knowledge, and that you're feeling kind of hurt and angry and let down. Is that true?
Well, I got nothing to say back. Me now.
Right. So who won?
You did.
Big or small?
Big.
Big or huge?
Huge.
Huge. And how did I win?
You did the 5 secrets.
Yeah. The disarming technique, or if you want to put it in the cognitive therapy language, the acceptance paradox.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that our suffering never comes from our shortcomings, but from our failure to accept it, and that pressure we put on ourselves. But let's try a role reversal.
Okay.
Could I talk to you for a minute, Dr. Jillian?
Yes.
You referred me to that specialist, and I'll go see that specialist. But I just want you to know that I'm bitterly disappointed because I expected you to have the answer to my problem.
Wow, I'm kind of disappointed too that I don't know the answer, because I care a lot about you, and I want to see you get better, and I wish we could do it faster. But this is beyond my expertise. And so I think the best thing is if we get you where you need to be to take the best care of you.
Who won?
I did.
Big or small?
Big.
Big or huge?
I think huge.
Huge, right. How did you win huge?
I didn't fight it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think just accepting it, I didn't know it.
Yeah. So you accept the fact that you don't know how to help me?
Yes, in this situation, I want what's best for you, and I don't think I can provide that.
You should be able to help me. You should know the answers. I hate you.
Wow, that's some strong language you got there. I'm not the right person for everybody. I did.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Now, I know I'm just a weak patient, but we have an angry colleague over there who has a few things to tell you.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jillian, I realized I just wanted to share why I got stuck is because it needed a 5 secrets response, which is not what I usually do in Feared Fantasy. I expected you to be way more over the top, right? That was like a real situation where a patient might say, hey, you couldn't help me. Why couldn't you help me? And then I feel like, yeah, of course you would use disarming and feeling empathy and thought empathy. And I thought you were going to tear me up telling me like I'm a phony and I'm not special and all of that stuff. So I got a little...
Well, let's do that one now.
Do you wanna,
go ahead. Tell her
Jillian,
she's a phony.
I was going to say, Jillian, do you want me to hit you with that? Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
So Jillian, I'm one of your dear colleagues, right? And I heard that you were actually not able to help someone recently. Like someone came to you with a problem and you weren't able to fix it. So that makes you a phony in my book.
Oh, okay. I think that not every doctor knows everything. And I think I did what was appropriate, which was if it was not within my knowledge to get the person to the best care. And when I think of a phony, I think of someone who actually acts at the opposite, someone who thinks they know what the heck's going on, but have no clue. And I think I did the exact opposite of a phony.
So who won?
I did.
Big or small?
Huge.
But
awesome.
I know you defeated my colleague over there, but I want to tell you that I don't see anything about you that's particularly special. I heard you were some kind of red hot, fantastic concierge doctor or something. But I don't see that you're special at all. I think you're kind of a nobody. A small town too.
Yeah. I am a nobody, actually. I am honestly just trying to take the best care of people. And I lived the big life and it almost killed me. And so I kind of like this little small thing I have going where I get to care about people deeply.
Who won?
I did.
Big or small?
Big, huge.
Big or huge?
Yeah, huge.
Huge or gargantuan?
I think gargantuan.
Yeah, isn't that awesome?
I kind of love that one best of all in a way, because you've been talking back to these negative thoughts with so much amazing evidence of how helpful you are to everyone. But I kind of even love you being able to embrace, and if I wasn't, you know what I mean? If I am just kind of a nobody who's just trying to do the best I can, that's cool too, Almost like you have so much ammunition against these negative thoughts because you are such a rock star. And at the same time, if we were to say, oh, but you're a nobody, you're kind of like, yeah, I guess so. I'm just trying hard to help patients in my little town.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to be special.
I love what you're saying. And one teaching point is that there's no problem to be solved in your life. Nothing that needs to be fixed. The only modification is to change the way you're thinking about things and stop beating up on yourself, and that's the only change that has to be made. It's kind of a simple-minded point, but it's so simple that almost everybody doesn't get it. So that's why I'm mentioning it. And why don't we just see how you're feeling right now, and then we can take our break and do some teaching points and do some Q&A and do some really fun stuff. But it's been, for me, a very feeling and emotional experience working with you. One idea is that we're all one, and when you have changed so much at the gut level, then I feel that, and Jill feels that, and everybody feels that. We all either go to hell together or kind of go to heaven together, because sometimes I've said things in sessions that hurt someone's feelings, and then that really rips me apart. And if a session has a bad outcome, that hurts me. And then when things go beautifully as you're doing, it lifts me as much as the person I'm working with. But how sad, blue, down, and unhappy are you feeling at this moment? We can do our after column on the daily.
Just so the audience knows, we're on page 6 of Jillian's daily blog, and we're going to indicate her feelings in the after column, as David said.
0.
0, great. And then how anxious are you feeling? That was 90.
0.
0. How bad are you feeling?
0.
0. How
There's a trend here.
Inadequate and worthless or incompetent are you feeling?
0.
How self-conscious?
Yeah, not at 0.
0. How hopeless?
0.
0. How defeated and frustrated?
0.
0. And how resentful, annoyed, and irritated?
0. That feels so good to be gone.
Yeah. And one point we didn't make this morning with Michelle is what we've done essentially here is we've completed therapy in a single session, because the therapy is over and there will never be anything for you again other than this for the rest of your life. This is your fractal. This is the only thing that will ever bug you. Now the person we have to do relapse prevention training. The person may want to stay in therapy to work on other problems, but the essential work is done. There could be relapses come in for a tune-up or something like that, but the goal here is really to get everything, laid out, and then one could blow away these self-defeating beliefs, perfectionism, perceived perfectionism, and all of that, approval addiction, but you've already blown them all away at the same time that you crush your negative thoughts. Because, I could say, well, if one person looks down on you, everyone in the town will.
Yeah, that's not true.
Yeah, you see, so all of this stuff, the brain switches more or less completely. Now, the two questions, are these changes real? Because some people in the audience say, well, you can't realistically go that fast. And I get hate mail sometimes from people for mentioning in a podcast that people can often recover quickly now. And someone sent me an email 2 weeks ago that just said, F you. It was enraged. And I probably said it probably narcissistically. I probably deserved that, being chided, but it's hard for people to comprehend. Did this really happen?
Yeah. And so one of the things is I just looked at the downward arrow that we did at the very beginning. And I got to the last two of like, I don't mean anything to anybody and that there would be no point in living. And I can't even grasp the idea of I don't mean anything to anybody because for one, what the hell does that even mean? And two, I probably mean a whole hell of a lot to my kids and my husband and my patients. And so, I think it's true and real.
Yeah, that's great. I think so too. But what did it for you? What caused this blow away of these feelings that have been with you, haunting you for months, if not years?
I think agenda setting. Honestly, when Jill read all of the things off of the
positive reframing,
the positive reframing sheet, kind of when I heard that was a moment where it just kind of felt like something had shifted inside. And it was like, oh, so here I am fighting against all this when all that other stuff is still behind it. That's all good and positive.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? And now we'll take our afternoon break and we'll talk about that in the teaching tips and the Q&A. But yes, that's such an important thing. And that was really the key to team therapy. That was what was missing from the earlier cognitive therapy, the motivation piece and ways to melt away the resistance. Because when you've melted away the resistance and you have someone as beautiful and smart and powerful as Jillian, you can't lose. The negative thoughts don't have a chance. They only have a chance when the patient is resisting. And the patient will resist, not because of what's wrong with you, but what's right with you, because there's so many beautiful things about all the self-criticism. And then the paradox is once the patient really gets sold on all the negative thoughts and feelings, the patient doesn't need them anymore. Thank you, Jillian, for not only being brave and for courageous, but for once again bringing magic to this day. And to me, that's why I love doing therapy more than anything in the world, because of the magic. Does it look like I'm looking at you?
It does.
Oh, does it? Because you're right. The camera's up there, but I look at you, and you brought us real magic, and. I don't know what more I can say except just hugs and thanks. It's just so fantastic.
David, or Jillian, I was sharing with David that I was thinking it would make sense to also think a little bit about homework, right? What would be some good homework to give you? And one place to start, obviously, is to listen to the session and to go ahead and fill out the daily mood log. I was writing all of your positive thoughts, but I don't think you were. We were moving so quickly. Usually I move much more slowly with patients and make sure they write everything down, or you can record sessions too. But so listen to the recording, make sure that you write out all of your positive thoughts and kind of finish the daily mood log. But the other thought that I had was you had mentioned when we asked you what your goal was with the miracle cure question, that I would enjoy my job with no more fear. I feel like we've accomplished that. You also said something about two things, which were like maybe that I would set better boundaries with my patients and that I would let go or give away some of my certificates. And I wondered whether we should assign that to you for homework, which is to it would be your decision, but you're going to need to think through, do I need to set certain boundaries with my patients? And what the question I would ask is, for each certificate, am I doing that because I'm so passionate and interested and love it for a love of learning, in which case sounds great, or am I doing it because I feel that I need to know more, that it would be horrible if I didn't have an answer? And if that's the reason to pursue the certification, then it sounds like that would not be consistent with your therapy goal.
Right. So I think that now, not listening to the mental chatter about setting boundaries, Because there are ways, like I shouldn't have had my phone on that Sunday that whole sparked. He texted me about, does CBD oil help with pain on a Sunday afternoon? I have ways of shutting that off. And so, but there's part of me that was always like, well, if I do that, he's going to be mad at me if I don't respond right away. And then they're going to leave me. And then I go down that whole spiral. And now it's like, okay, if it's super urgent, they actually call me. Otherwise, the text messages get silenced. And so I think that the guilt of silencing and setting those boundaries without listening to that damn little voice is going to be a lot easier to do, to have that break and not feel like I have to be at their beck and call all the time.
Right. So that is your goal then, is to make some decisions about some boundaries around my phone, around my availability, so that I do love my job and I'm not feeling burdened and anxious. Right.
Yeah. And I don't know that I necessarily have to, I may not do all the continuing ed hours to keep up some of the things, but it doesn't mean I still don't apply the techniques or what have you, that I've learned from all this stuff. And so then I think it just becomes a lot more of what do I actually enjoy, and figuring that out of what needs to happen. What do I want to happen? What do I need to do to pay the bills? But what can be let go, as in instead of grabbing onto it so hard, hoping that it will, make me magically feel better.
Right.
Yeah. I think
it's that we talked about the self-defeating beliefs. There's self-esteem equations, right? So you don't need a certification so you can feel good about yourself, right? It's not going to prove anything, but you might pursue it because it seems really interesting or really cool, or you love it. And that's totally different, but you don't need it to feel good about yourself.
Right.
When a book you might want to read is called Caring for Patients, and it's written by Alan Barber, who was the only professor I really connected with when I was a horrible medical student and very rebellious, but I loved Alan Barber. And he was the head of outpatient medicine. And people came from all over the United States and Canada and Alaska when they had medical problems that no one could help them with. And he knew very well that none of these patients had medical problems. They just had human problems, and that came out as belly pain or headaches or dizziness. And he had a cure rate of about 50% that he was very proud of. He was probably the top doctor in the United States. And he failed half of the time. But he was very proud that he could help half of these people. And all he did was just, when he was listening to the chest and, pretending to listen to the chest, he knew that their heart was fine. And, he could hear it with his stethoscope. But he would say, when the symptoms came on, do you remember what was going on in your life that day? And then the patient would say something, that my symptoms came on the day my wife died. And then he would say, like, you must have grieved so tremendously. And this patient said, no, doc, I didn't think I was supposed to. I didn't think a man was supposed to cry. And I've just been dizzy ever since. And then he'd just say something like, I think you need to cry right now. And then the guys would start crying. And then he'd say, gosh, doc, my dizziness just disappeared. That's about all he did. I just loved him. And you might, find that it's just a very, very simple book. And you might be so proud of what you're doing is beyond, any tools that he had.
It's really sweet, David. It sounds like you had such a connection with him.
Yeah.
So,
his concern was the same as yours. How do I really care for people?
Yeah.
And I was going to say one more overall point, Jillian, which is David often says that there's sort of like low-level solutions and high-level solutions. And I think in your case that we hit both, that low-level solution is like you realizing that you really are kind of a rock star and pretty awesome, and you've delivered babies and saved lives and helped people to die, and like sort of your realization that like none of this is really true. I'm actually pretty awesome. And that's sort of like the low-level solution. That's the self-defense. And then kind of the high-level solution was I think when you said something like like I am kind of average, or I am a nobody, you know, that it's sort of the opposite and also true, which is why that I think that is the high level solutions. Like, I'm not special. I don't need to be special. I'm connecting with my patients, and I'm caring with my patients. So it's almost like, you know, one of them is saying, but I actually do rock. And the other one is saying, and it doesn't matter if I don't rock, right? Like, I don't need to know everything. I don't need to be special. I don't need everyone to admire me. And it seemed to me like both of those were parts of the, you know, solution.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And David, I look forward to reading that book. I will probably be getting it soon.
It was Stanford University Press and hardbound, and I think Cambridge, Oxford University Press and paperback. And it might be hard to get because he died the month before it came out, so he didn't have anyone to kind of promote it for him, but it's just a message that a lot of general practice doctors would benefit greatly by hearing and bring the human model rather than always relying on medical model and more blood tests and costly scans and stuff, and that a great deal can be done by people in your position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that as I was going through Mike's class, and we were really kind of working on empathy, and I would have a patient in here who I couldn't figure out medically, and all I did was empathy. Yeah. Because I was like, I can't find anything wrong with you, so let's just go empathy. And I think one of the patients, I sat in here for an hour and a half and just listened to him go on about his wife.
Oh yeah.
I didn't fix anything he came in with, but he felt miraculously better when I left.
Yeah.
Just through empathy.
Yeah, that's right. And then just directing them, is there a problem in your life that you need to attend to? Because it's such a humble thing to say, but that was enough for a lot of them. You know, the kids have gone to college, and then you've been lonely the last 6 months. And is that something you need to, you know, find a focus of something, get a job, find something fun to do, interesting, and then whatever they were complaining about, headaches or whatever, would suddenly disappear.
So David, we have lots of questions from the audience, and we only have at 3:30. We got to do breakout groups. So
sure, I will shut up.
So Maggie, can you tell us what are some questions that you have from the audience?
Yeah, there's been a lot of great questions and also comments for Jillian again. A few people wanted to know about they missed the different response options and externalization of voices, if that could be reviewed again.
Yeah, there's the self-defense paradigm. That's where you attack the negative thoughts because it's very distorted, and you argue that it just ain't true, that I'm a worthless person or whatever, I'm a bad mom or whatever, one of your thoughts. I'm not making an impact. It's just not true. It's fraudulent. The acceptance paradox is finding the truth in the negative thought. Yes, I may be making an impact, but I'd like to be making more of an impact, and it's incredibly important to me to make an impact and to be helpful for people, and maybe there are ways I could be more helpful. And then the CAT, or the counterattack technique, is simply talking back to your negative thought and saying, no, my problem isn't that I have this or that flaw. And my problem isn't that I'm not making enough of an impact. My problem is listening to your BS, to this voice in my brain that's brutally putting me down all the time and bullying me. And it's simply saying to that voice in your head, I'm not listening to this anymore. It's just the same as sticking up for yourself when there's a bully in the schoolyard, standing up to that bully. Those are the three strategies. Now I use over 100 strategies to crush negative thoughts, but those are the three most powerful of them.
Great. Thank you for explaining that. Yeah. And then there was a really great question from Dr. O'Reilly. I think it's really important. So, what about if a person has a negative thought that's steeped in oppression? For example, people do not like me and they think I'm incompetent because of my ex-minority identity.
Well, in the United States, maybe more than in Canada, but probably in Canada too, there's just so much real oppression and hatred. Things are just awful, and sometimes negative thoughts are true. And I think that this is a time, as in the 60s when I was a medical student, and political activism was so important in all of our lives. And I think this has come back to the time of the 60s, and it's time for us to stand together and to begin to fight the oppression that's real, and to make it clear to our students and colleagues where we stand on sexuality and racial. Our Tuesday training group at Stanford is a rainbow group on every level. Got people from all over the world, and people, most of them, English is a second language. We have people of all sexual identities, and it's just a beautiful thing, and I'm so proud of that. But the oppression is very likely to be a real thing. Everything isn't a cognitive distortion. There's healthy negative emotions. There's healthy anger. I triggered a riot at the Stanford campus the night they bombed Cambodia. There were police in the middle of the circle, and there were 3,000 students. We were enraged that in the 1960s when they bombed Cambodia, and I had a friend on the back of my motorcycle. I'd been drinking. I was pretty drunk, and I thought, somebody's got to do something. It was a standoff between about 15 police officers. So I said, I'm just going to drive my motorcycle right into them. I'm going to just plow them down with my motor. I had a very fast motorcycle, and I just revved it up and popped the clutch and started at the police. And I got about halfway there, and they started charging at me. I said, this doesn't seem like a good idea at all. And I spun out, and they started pounding on me with clubs and put me in handcuffs. But it triggered a massive riot on the Stanford campus, and the thousands of students went rioting. And they put a person guarding me, and I managed to get my handcuffs off, but I didn't let them know, and I managed to escape and get away. But there's healthy anger. Sometimes there's times to stick up for yourself, to stick up for what you believe in, and I think we're at another era where hopefully we can make another step forward toward greater love. But it's so tough. Because people are like anti-Black or anti-India or anti-Asian or whatever, they're almost delusional and rigid in their hatred, and it's such and then we have it, all of us. We've got this inside of us, we're against this or that, and it's a real problem. That's all I can say.
Yeah, what I was going to say is I love your elaborate response, David, and very much more simply, I would just say that from the cognitive model, obviously not all thoughts are distorted. And so this is a situation where we would definitely want to empathize, and spend time empathizing, and also from a perspective, potentially positively reframing, right? If someone is feeling oppressed or is angry, there's like real beauty in that. And what does it show about you that's positive and awesome? And so, I mean, like, for example, David's proud of his rebelliousness and proud of his anger and so, technically that could come up as empathy. It could come up as paradoxical agenda setting of positive reframing, in fact. So Maggie, I'm sure you have a couple other questions, and we just have like 2 more minutes or 3 more minutes of questions, and then we want to set up the breakout practice.
Yeah, I definitely have more. So a few people, like including Tom, wanted to know, if it's okay if the patient still wants to press the magic button after going through all the positive reframing. Like, what if their goal is for their emotions to get down to 0?
You can answer that, Jill. You like?
Yeah, I'm just being honest, I haven't really had that ever happen. Like when you do positive reframing and it's connected and it's authentic and the patient is realizing that there's so much benefit, I guess maybe it would happen in the case that someone's saying, yeah, I mean, these are all true, and yet I don't actually need to feel anxious to have high standards. My anxiety could be at a 0 and I could still, care deeply, or I could still work hard. But my point is, I'd be a little skeptical if someone was all 0s after doing positive reframing. And I would say, sure, do you not need to hang on to like a little bit of your, let's say, anxiety to maintain your high standards? So do almost like a little negotiation there. But if they convinced me that they really didn't need any of these feelings, they could kind of hang on to all the positives without the negatives, then I think the exercise would still have been really useful.
Yeah, it might be okay, but more than likely the therapist and the patient haven't gotten the point of it. So these are subtle techniques. They're kind of hard to learn. We make them look simple, but I'm like Jill, very suspicious if they're going for all 0s, because the interventions might not be effective unless they can see the value in their negative thoughts and feelings.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then, Sarah noticed that when you and Jill were, giving Jillian empathy, you use self-disclosure. And how would you know when it's appropriate to use self-disclosure?
Well, I think the thing about self-disclosure, I think, is appropriate 100% of the time. That's because my supervisor said it's appropriate 0% of the time. So I generally did the opposite of anything they told me to do, because the supervision they gave me never helped one patient my whole time in my residency. But the way you do it effectively is you're telling a story about yourself that has a happy ending. So something that will be spirit uplifting for the patient. So if you say to the patient, oh yes, I get depressed too all the time, I'm suicidal half of the time, and I know how painful it is, and can't guarantee I'll be here next week for your session. Well, that's not going to be helpful to the patient, because you're just showing yourself as not knowing how to do anything. But if you say to the patient, I've felt the way that you have felt, and I can show you how to change as well, and that's going to be a great experience for you and for me as well. Then your self-disclosure comes as a professional, mood uplifting experience for the patient. And on a bigger level, all the methods that Jill and I use are very powerful. And any method has a downside. And if you don't do it skillfully, it can hurt the patient just as well as it can be uplifting. And that's why we strongly recommend that if any of you really want to be pursuing this and using these tools in your clinical practice, it would be desirable to get more training and to get really good at it, because it's just like Jill and I just demonstrated open heart surgery twice today. We did heart transplants. And this is like a surgical theater with everyone watching. But now we're not saying go home and grab a knife and start cutting into people's chests, because you need some training to learn how to do this in a way that will be helpful and healing to people and avoid any number of pitfalls that are very real.
So these are teaching points that we have made throughout the workshop. They're also learning objectives, and so we want to make sure that everyone feels like they are well schooled on these 6 points. But David, I'm not sure. Did you want to briefly talk about them, or
just a brief point on each one? We can take turns, but on the benefits of measurement, we measure at the start and end of every single therapy session, so you can find out not only how effective or ineffective you've been, and use that data to fine-tune the therapy. And the reason team has emerged, and the reason we've gotten so good at changing people within sessions, is because we measure the start and end of sessions. So we figured out what works in sessions and what doesn't work, and has what led to the birth of team. And when you measure things, you'll also find out at the end how empathic you were or weren't, how helpful you were. You get a tremendous amount of data and information that can transform your clinical practice if you have humility.
Yeah, and the second one, the one common empathy error, we've said the cheerleading. There's other empathy errors for sure, like making interpretations or skipping empathy and jumping to methods. But one thing we highlighted was trying not to cheerlead. And one person asked, what is the difference between, let's say, empathy and cheerleading? And what I would say, David, you can comment if you want to, but empathy is connecting with your patient and showing warmth and sharing your feelings and empathizing with their feelings. And cheerleading is trying to make your patient feel better. And so in the empathy phase, I'm wanting to connect and to say caring things for the sake of connection and warmth and safety, but not for the purpose of making my patient feel better. I actually want my patient to get better because of the work that we do together, not because of anything that I say that sort of cheers them up.
And the what's my grade is how to get to top empathy quickly with any new patient. And I think in both of the demonstrations today, I think we started out kind of with a B, and then we got then both individuals or colleagues that we worked with then went on to say, here's something you missed, and both were dramatic. This morning it was the somatic dimension that we'd overlooked, and then this afternoon with you, Jillian, you opened up about this part that you hadn't revealed about the previous work and the horrors that you've been through, and again, it takes humility and courage to get the what's my grade, because you're probably not going to get an A, and if you're willing to then say, well, tell me what I'm missing, you can dramatically, quickly get a deep connection with almost anybody.
And the purpose of positive reframing, well, there's many purposes, right? And so I think the number one purpose is to side with the patient's resistance to avoid a power struggle, so that I'm going to take the side of the good reasons, not to change, so that my patient doesn't take that side and I end up on the other. And the other thing is, as we said, to make the patient sort of proud of their symptoms. So they're not only symptomatic and shameful, but they're actually seeing really kind of the beauty in their symptoms, the beauty in their suffering, which in fact is kind of mood elevating in and of itself.
And there's 10 cognitive distortions, and you can see them in your handout on the daily mood logs, or conveniently on page 2. I first published them in my book, Feeling Good. And you like all or nothing thinking, overgeneralization, mind reading, should statement, self-blame, emotional reasoning. And you saw also a new technique, which is explain the distortions that we used. And we asked you, Jillian, to explain some of the distortions in your thoughts. And that led to positive thoughts that were 100% true and that crushed the negative thoughts. So you can get a lot of mileage now just out of the tool of identifying cognitive distortions and asking the patient to explain it to you. But you don't want to explain it to the patient, because now you're kind of doing psychoeducation, whereas when you make them explain it to you, then you're doing therapy.
And then the last one here is, what is the purpose of crushing distorted thoughts? And that part is probably kind of obvious. It's essentially, in a nutshell, to feel better, right? If we feel the way that we think and we have all these kind of distorted negative thoughts, then actually doing cognitive therapy and using these methods to challenge and change and kind of crush negative thoughts is going to end up leading us to feel better.
Now for the afternoon exercise, is it?
Yeah, exactly. There. Okay. I couldn't see you on my screen, but now I can. And also, David, I think you were going to mention, but that though our session went quickly, kind of on warp speed, there were a lot of methods that you saw within the session that we just did. And so obviously we spent a good amount of time doing empathy and what's my grade, the various paradoxical agenda setting methods, right? Like the invitation and the magic button and the magic dial and the miracle cure question. But even when we got to methods, you saw us, identifying the distortions, explaining the distortions, teaching and demonstrating externalization of voices. And then also we ended up doing the feared fantasy technique.
And we did a downward arrow technique, and I identified self-defeating beliefs as well.
Well, I'm so excited to have you here on the podcast, Jillian and Jill, to hear more about how this personal work with David has impacted your life. And I'm going to turn over the podcast to Jill and David. I have a couple questions I want to ask you too, but let's dive in. How are you?
I am doing well. I can't believe it's been a couple of months since then, and I am really excited to share kind of how the last few months have gone.
Cool. How are you sleeping?
I am sleeping much, much, much better. I'm definitely, my brain is calmer and not getting riled up as much. But I still had to do some daily mood logs here and there. So, but they are becoming much, much easier to work through. They don't take nearly as long when I just say, shut the heck up, once I start writing down the negative thoughts.
You say, shut the heck up to your negative thoughts.
I do. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I can't believe I'm writing this down. This just doesn't hold any weight or make any sense anymore.
That's so neat to hear that. I think that's that whole idea of team, that each person will have your own brain circuits that create your misery, but it'll be the same circuit. So once you've learned how to defeat them, they will try to come back and haunt you over and over for the rest of your life. But you now know the technique that you can use to crush those thoughts.
I think I actually emailed you and Jill like the next day or the day after. And it was that I would experiment, like, is a negative thought going to come in? Like, let me test out my superpower. And so I still feel that way as the negative thoughts come in. I'm like, I still have my superpower. I can still defeat these.
Yeah. Tuning into that superpower, that is the miracle. You can call it self-love, or there's a lot of names for it. The Buddha called it enlightenment. But whatever it is, it's good shit, as the Buddha used to say. And now Jill has some 3 incredibly illuminating and important points to make.
No, David just likes to set me up. I do not have 3 illuminating points to make. No, but it's exciting to be back together with you, Jillian. And I can see and hear in your voice, just this sense of peace and calm and even kind of excitement about continuing to do the work, right? So, yeah, I mean, one thing I would ask is, was there one thing that you felt was sort of like most helpful that occurred during the live session, the live work we did with you?
I think there might have been 2 things. One was when we did the downward arrow and we got to the whole, I'm just not making a big enough difference. I think that was kind of a light bulb moment of realizing maybe what has been underneath the surface of a lot of these thoughts, and a lot of my achievements and striving and continuing to try to get, that perfect thing that'll make this all better. So I think that was probably number one. And
now, before we go on, how did that help you? What was the self-defeating belief, and why was that helpful to you?
Because once we came to the point of, I may not be making a
big enough impact
to 7.5 billion people on the planet, but there's still a lot of people in my day-to-day life. So now when I see patients, instead of being, working myself up and saying, oh, I'm not helping them enough, I literally just sit there and I'm like, me giving them my time is enough. And so a lot of the striving, a lot of the negative thoughts, I think were all kind of this common belief of just that I wasn't making a big enough impact. And really that's coming through the rest of the session and getting to the point of like, I don't need to. It's nice to want to, and I will, continue to do as much work as I can. But it's not that I have to or that I should have a bigger impact. I can have the impact I can have. And so changing that core belief was really, really nice. And seeing that it was probably the underpinning of a lot of them, of my negative thoughts.
I was recently hospitalized at Kaiser with a cardiac issue. And I certainly realized that what meant something to me was to find a doctor who kind of would care about me and talk to me and share his or her skills that meant everything to me. And I wasn't looking for somebody who was making some kind of grandiose impact. I was looking for somebody who'd care about me a little bit and, kind of explain what was going on and that type of thing. The warmth,
right.
Someone who'd want to make a little impact just on me.
Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, Jillian, that it seemed like that. And actually, I wanted to come back because you said there were two things, and that was one of them. So we should put a bookmark in that. But I was just going to say that it seemed like it was helpful both because this belief was sort of, as you said, like underlying all these other beliefs or negative thoughts. And so targeting it was super helpful to you. I think also we spent a good amount of time kind of positively reframing that belief and others like it that sort of helped you also to feel proud of it, right? Like the fact that you were telling yourself, I'm not making a big enough difference, showed all of us kind of what a beautiful person you are, that you care so deeply about your patients. And, I think you sort of left the positive reframing feeling just kind of proud of your values, right? And that maybe contributed to feeling like, wow, I really am making a difference and I care so much about all the people that I interact with.
And so we can close out the bookmark. So that was the second part. I mean, okay. So when I love listening to it, Jill, when you read to me all of the positive reframes of what my emotions and what those thoughts meant, like I was just out walking the other day listening to the recording, and I was in tears as I was listening to you tell me like what all these things meant about who I was as a person. And so I found that was also one of the most impactful things that happened during the session. Using the methods was great, but it was like those two things I think were some of the things maybe I was missing in trying to do this on my own. And so I thought it was amazing.
Seeing the miracle that you are, as opposed to this grandiose thing that you're supposed to be, the beautiful miracle of a human being, a woman, a doctor that you are already. I just love what you said and what you said, Jill. That's the miracle that we're trying to give to people, to see the beauty in yourself and your life. It sounds so schmaltzy, but it's,
And the beauty in your suffering, right? Like to sort of recognize that Jillian was really raking herself over the coals and suffering so much, but in kind of looking at her suffering, it was so clear kind of what her values are, right? How important it is to her to make a difference, to be there for her patients. Yeah.
Can I put you through your paces quickly, Jillian?
Sure.
Because I found 2 negative thoughts on your daily mood log that you didn't answer for whatever reason. You answered 11 and blew them out of the water, but 12 and 13 were left unanswered. So I thought I could become the Jillian, negative Jillian right now, or Rhonda and Jill also. But just see if you can blow these out of the water. This will be your tune-up.
Okay.
So I'm the negative Jillian and you're the positive Jillian. Could I talk to you for a minute, Jillian?
Sure.
I just want to remind you that you should be able to fix people who come to you with a problem.
Yeah, you're right. And some people I can, and some people I need to pass on. And I think that it's probably good to know where my limits are and where my boundaries are. And I am not going to know everything. And I don't think any doctor knows everything. So I'm going to call out for help when I need to.
Who won?
I did.
Big or small?
I'd say big.
Big or huge?
I would say huge.
Huge. I thought so too. I thought it was beautiful. One more, my last effort to topple you. And this is quite a different kettle of fish, and you will not be able to defeat this one. And that's that your patient should do what you recommend in terms of a healthy lifestyle.
Well, that would be idealistic. I can't control what my patients actually do. I can offer them the best medical advice that I have, I can help motivate them with different techniques and even CBT techniques to help with that. But ultimately, my responsibility is to be there with them and listen to them and kind of meet them where they're at and provide that sort of presence that you were talking about when you were in the hospital. So, I wish they would. But just as I maybe don't take all the advice I'm given,
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate when people that are caring for me just take the time with me, whether I change or not. And so the biggest gift I can give my patients is to just be there with them.
Who won?
I did. Huge.
Huge, yeah. That was beautiful. Yeah,
Rock star. That was amazing.
Rhonda, why don't you... Well, we want to mention Jill's class, and then you can bring it to closure, Rhonda.
Okay, but did you also want to do the feared fantasy with the other thought?
We can if you guys want, yeah.
Yeah, I think we have plenty of time to do that. That would be really fun.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do that. We can all be the feared. Now, in feared fantasy, for our listeners, you make the patient's worst nightmare come to life in a kind of a fantasy role play. And you tell the patient, we're not trying to trick anyone or put them down, but one of your fears would be that one of your patients, I think, would be angry with you because you didn't know all the answers or would think you're not cool enough. What exactly would that thought be? What would the patient from hell be thinking?
Probably that I am such an idiot that I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah. So we're going to be that patient and see if you can defeat us. So you want to start out, Rhonda, as the patient? Now, this is the patient from hell.
Right. So this isn't Rhonda actually talking to you. We're entering the Alice in Wonderland world of hell where your worst nightmares actually do come true. You understand?
Fabulous. Bring it on. Bring it
on. Okay. And so, hey, Jillian, haven't seen you for a long time. I thought I would just check in with you, see how you're doing.
Well, that's very nice of you.
Yeah. You know what? I'm just having the greatest experience with my patients. I always know the answers to every question that they ask me. They ask me the weirdest questions and about the weirdest medical conditions that no one has ever heard of. I always know the answer right on the tip of my fingernails.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. You must be very quick and a good study. I'm just a simple Joe, and I do my best that I can, and I don't have all the answers, but it sounds like you're doing wonderfully.
I am actually. Did you hear about the medal that I just got?
Why don't we just stop here and just say who won?
Okay, who won that, Jillian?
I did.
And did you win that small or large?
I would say large.
Large or huge?
Yeah. I even think huge. I think you kind of saw the ridiculousness of it. Where I was just like, well, isn't that nice to be you? Like, right. I'm not sure that I want to be arrogant and egotistical like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
That was huge and beautiful. But now Jill will be the patient from hell. That was the colleague from hell. Jill will be the patient from hell who's ticked off at you because you can't solve her problem.
Yeah. So yeah, Dr. Jillian, I think that you're actually an idiot. Really just a stupid idiot doctor because you don't know the answer to some of the questions that I brought to you today.
Oh, wow. I mean, you're right. Like, I clearly didn't know the answer today. And, I'm feeling kind of embarrassed that I can't help you out with this problem. It seems like it's really upsetting to you and that I really didn't meet your needs today. And so I was wondering kind of what did I miss? That you are this upset.
Okay, who won?
I think I did. I mean, it felt sincere and good, and it didn't feel like I had to take it personally.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So, what is the switch there for our listeners who might have heard it but not exactly grasp it? What's the key to this little version of enlightenment? Why is Jill's intense criticism and Rhonda's intense criticism, brutal attempts to humiliate you and put you down, why is this just water off a duck's back?
So I think two things there, probably acceptance paradox of just like, I'm not going to know all the answers, but using at least 3 of the 5 secrets for effective communication to really kind of diffuse the situation when being attacked.
Yeah, and it's the death of the self, and this is the afterlife. After the self has died, you have no more territory to defend. It's only when our ego comes to life and we're trying to be something special that we suffer. And when you accept your life, you accept your gifts, then you're totally vulnerable, but you become totally invulnerable at the same time. And since that sounds like total BS, I will shut up and let some more elegant person bring this to closure.
Well, I loved how you found truth in what Jill and I said, and I loved how you asked specific questions to Jill, like what did I specifically miss? And it seemed like that took the air out of the criticism. What did you think, Jill?
Absolutely. Oh, me, Jill?
Yeah.
We have similar names. I thought you did a great job. And I agree. There was just like beautiful disarming, really, in both examples, just kind of seeing the truth in what the other person was saying. But as you said, Jillian, you can see truth in a criticism without really letting your ego get too wounded, right? You can mess up as a doctor. You can not meet someone's needs. You can be not as amazing as some other doctor and yet not be too frazzled by it. So I felt like you had that just kind of calmness, caring, disarming attitude, which was, wonderful.
Now, here's my closure and lead into your upcoming class that some of our listeners might be interested in, Jill. The reason that I've been pushing so hard to do this personal work is not only because it's incredibly rewarding and great training, but to show that it is possible in a single extended therapy session, meaning a 2-hour therapy session, to bring someone from years of pretty intense suffering and in many cases failed therapy, not only to improvement, but to really complete recovery and feelings of joy, which doesn't mean permanent happiness 7 days a week, but feeling happy and joyous most of the time, which is what we're all entitled to. No one's entitled to be happy all the time, but you can complete a course of therapy really in a single therapy session using team CBT. And to show that it is possible, kind of proof that this can happen, that the results can be real, the results can be lasting. Now, if you want to learn how to do this, it isn't easy. It takes a lot of work and commitment. Jill and I, and when Rhonda and I, we did a session similar recently, and we make it look easy. And when you know how to do it in a way, it kind of is easy, but it takes a lot of training. And if you're interested, Jill has worked to put together a magnificent course. I think there's 11 continuing education credit hours, and I think you're calling it, Jill, the 4 basic tools of Team CBT, which I take it are the testing, the empathy, the paradoxical agenda setting, along with many of the methods. And if any of you are therapists really wanting an introductory class, this is a class you can purchase. I think it's under $200. Jill will give you the details in a minute. And presumably it's recorded so you can listen to it over and over again. Also, we have free unlimited training for any of you who are therapists as well. Rhonda's Wednesday group for people from all over the world, and Jill and I have our Tuesday group at Stanford, which is virtual now, for California therapists. And lastly, if you're a general public person and you're interested in purchasing Jill's amazing course just to learn more about therapy, I think that would also be a great investment and a great use of your time and get a deeper insight into team, because Jill is one of the greatest teachers on planet Earth. And since she's a great teacher, I will shut up and let her bring it to closure.
Thank you, David. You're always so kind and complimentary, and I so appreciate it. And I'll just briefly say that, it's an 11-hour home study course, meaning it's on demand. So you can purchase it and then you can watch it, listen to it, engage with it, do the exercises on your own time, and you can do it over and over again if you want to re-listen to it once you purchase the course. So I'll first just say you can find the course at teamcbtcoreskills.com. So teamcbtcoreskills.com.
Is Team CBT Core Skills, CORE?
Yes.
All one word?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. teamcbtcoreskills.com.
Right. And it, just to let people know too, it includes didactic training by me, role plays of lots of therapy skills of me and other therapists, and then these really fun, lively, entertaining interviews with David that I think are kind of the icing on the cake. And if you're not a therapist, you can definitely purchase it and watch it and listen and do the exercises as well. And yes, the cost is $175. And if you are a therapist and you qualify for CEs, you can get CEs. And if you're a therapist wanting to get team certification, those fees are also included. So you can become level 1 team certified along the way.
Thank you again, Jillian, from the bottom of my heart. What a joy it's been to know you. And to work with you, and that to me is the beautiful thing about doing therapy, seeing people on a real level over and over again, and then losing you, because when you recover, we kind of lose you. It's fun to have you come back and say hello again, but I wouldn't want it any other way.
Oh, I can't thank you guys enough for the changes that I've gotten to experience since we had our live session. So attitude back.
Thank you. And thanks, David, always for making such a great role model and being so brave and doing this personal work with patients. It's always scary but thrilling to be your co-therapist.
Yeah, we have fun. We've always had fun. And now now Rhonda's off to a most important event. Her husband, Michael, is taking Rhonda to a live San Francisco Giants baseball game in just a few minutes. So have a hell of a lot of fun and go Giants.
Thank you.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.